Every culture built palaces for its heroes, temples for its kings. And then, at the edge of the firelight, they left a door unlocked. Something always slipped through it. Not a monster, not a saint, something that laughed. Picture a figure who changes shape between one breath and the next. Man, then mare, then salmon, then flame. Picture a newborn who climbs from his cradle and, before nightfall, robs a god blind and lies about it beautifully. Picture a thief who steals fire from heaven and hands it, still burning, to shivering mortals. Picture a spider small enough to crush underfoot who owns every story ever told, including this one. These are not the same being. They rose on different continents, in tongues that never touched, centuries apart. And yet they rhyme. The same sly grin surfaces in the ice of Scandinavia and the deserts of Egypt. This is the trickster, and across the whole human imagination he wears 1,000 faces. By the end of this journey you will have met every great trickster the world produced, and understood why every culture, without exception, needed one. So unlock the door. Let him in. Let us begin where all his kind begin, at the crossing. First, what is a trickster? Not simply a villain, not simply a fool, something far stranger and far older. The trickster is the boundary crosser. He lives where two worlds meet, heaven and earth, order and chaos, the living and the dead. He is the shapeshifter, never fixed in one form, because to belong to no category is to be free of every rule. He is the rule breaker who breaks rules not always from malice, but because rules, to him, are a game with loose stitching. And here is the paradox that defines him. The same hand that ruins can also give. He is the culture hero who steals fire, snares the sun, brings the stories, teaches the crafts that make us human. And in the same myth, he is the troublemaker who breaks the world he just improved. Creator and wrecker wearing one face. Nowhere is that double face carved deeper than in the frozen north, in the halls of the Norse. Meet Loki. Say the name and a modern image rises, a grinning brother of Thor. Set that image down. It is wrong. In the old Eddas, Loki is no son of Odin and no brother of Thor. He is Odin's blood brother, a sworn equal. The two once mixed their blood and vowed that neither would drink unless both were served. That oath binds a trickster to the throne. Loki is giant-born, adopted among the Aesir, welcome at their feasts, and never quite trusted at them. He is the master shapeshifter of the north. He becomes a salmon flashing upstream, a fly, an old woman, even a mare who bears Odin's 8-legged horse. His other children are darker. With the giantess Angrboda he fathered 3 shapes of doom. Fenrir, the wolf whose jaws would one day close on Odin. Jormungandr, the serpent circling the whole world. And Hel, gray-faced queen of the dead, who rules the cold country where the unheroic go. For a long age Loki's cunning saves the gods as often as it endangers them. Then comes the deed that cannot be undone. The bright god Balder begins to dream of his own death. His mother Frigg rides the world, drawing an oath of harmlessness from every stone, beast, and blade. But she passes over the mistletoe, too young and small to bother with. Loki hears of the one thing left unsworn. The gods make a game of Balder's safety, hurling weapons that refuse to bite him, laughing as he stands unharmed. Loki puts a mistletoe dart in the hand of Balder's blind brother and guides the throw. The laughter stops forever. For that, the gods hunt him down. They bind him beneath the earth with the entrails of his own son. Above him they fix a serpent, dripping venom onto his face, drop by burning drop, until the end of the world. His writhings, the poet said, were earthquakes. Loki is the trickster at his most tragic, needed, then feared, then chained. Travel south, and the archetype turns lighter on its feet. In the sunlit world of the Greeks, meet Hermes, born in a cave on Mount Cyllene at dawn. He is a god of the Olympians, but his true kingdom is the in-between, the road, the doorway, the boundary stone. The Greeks marked their crossroads with pillars called HERMES, bearing his name. Wherever one path became two, Hermes was watching. And he began his career the way every good trickster does, with a theft, before he could even walk properly. On the first day of his life, he climbed from the cradle and stole the cattle of his half-brother Apollo, driving them backward to blur the trail. When Apollo came raging, the infant blinked up in innocence. Then he plucked a tortoiseshell strung with gut and played. He had invented the lyre. Apollo, enchanted, traded away his stolen herd for the music. The thief walked off richer than before. So Zeus made him the herald of the gods, the one who carries divine words between worlds on winged sandals. And a darker duty followed. Hermes became the guide of souls, the psychopomp, leading the dead down to the river of the underworld. Of all the bright Olympians, only he could pass freely into death's country and return. The trickster alone crosses every threshold. But the Greeks told of another figure whose theft was heavier and whose punishment made him the noblest thief in myth. He was no Olympian. He belonged to the older race, the Titans, the powers that ruled before Zeus. His name was Prometheus, and it means forethought. When Zeus rose to power, he kept one gift from struggling mortals, fire. Without it, humanity shivered in the dark and stayed small. Prometheus took pity. He climbed to the heavens and stole a single ember, hiding it inside the hollow stalk of a fennel plant. He carried that stolen spark down to earth and gave it, glowing, into human hands. Cooking, metal, warmth, civilization all begin here. It is the purest trickster act ever told. To rob the powerful, not for himself, but to lift the powerless. Zeus did not forgive. He chained the Titan to a bare rock at the edge of the world. Each day an eagle tore out his liver. Each night, because he was immortal, it grew whole again for the next dawn's torture. Prometheus endured, unbroken, refusing to beg. He is the benefactor on the rock, the price of stolen fire made flesh. Fire, cunning, and mercy toward mortals follow those threads eastward, and they reappear on the rivers of ancient Mesopotamia. There, in the world's first cities, the Sumerians and Babylonians knew a god of the sweet waters beneath the earth. The Sumerians called him ENKI. The Akkadians called him Ea. He was the god of wisdom, and his wisdom was cunning. When the gods wanted servants, it was ENKI who shaped the first humans out of river clay and loved what he had made. But the humans multiplied, and their endless noise robbed the chief god Enlil of sleep. Enraged, he decreed a flood to drown them all. The other gods swore an oath of silence. ENKI had sworn it too, so he could not warn any mortal directly. So the trickster found the loophole. He spoke his warning to a wall of reeds, and let the wise man behind it overhear. "Build a boat," the wall whispered. And so the flood came, and humanity survived, saved by a god who obeyed the letter and broke the intent. ENKI is the trickster as cosmic advocate, matching his wits against heaven itself, so that his fragile creatures might live. Not every trickster is so kind. Cross into the red deserts of Egypt, and the archetype turns violent and vast. His name was Set, Lord of the storm, the desert, and disorder. Where ENKI nurtured, Set overturned. Yet the Egyptians needed him. Each night, Set rowed the sun god's boat and speared the serpent of oblivion that threatened to swallow the dawn. Chaos, it turned out, was the only weapon strong enough to hold back a deeper chaos. But Set could not be contained. He envied his brother Osiris, the good king who ruled the fertile land. And envy, in a trickster, becomes a trap. Set built a beautiful chest sized in secret to Osiris alone, and at a feast offered it to whoever fit inside. Osiris lay down in it. Set slammed the lid, sealed it, and cast his brother into the river to be carried out to sea. When Osiris was found, Set scattered him into pieces across the land, and grief and mourning followed in his wake. Yet from that death came resurrection. Isis gathered the pieces, and their son Horus rose to challenge his uncle for the throne. Set is the trickster whose deception kills, and whose chaos, terribly, also renews the world. Now turn to West Africa, where the crossroads itself is a god. Among the Yoruba lived ESHU, also called Eligba, the divine messenger and the keeper of every crossroads. He stands where all roads meet, where every choice divides. He is the god of chance, of accident, of the unexpected turn. He carries the words of humans up to the other gods and carries their answers back down. Nothing passes between worlds without him, and he loves to teach through confusion. In one famous tale, he walks a road wearing a hat, red on one side, black on the other. Two farmers, one on each side of the path, watch him pass. Afterward, they nearly come to blows, arguing over the color of a single hat. Both saw truly, both saw only half. That is ESHU's lesson. Your certainty is only ever the view from your own side of the road. He was never a devil, though some later tried to name him one. He is the necessary friction that keeps the world honest. Not far from him, in the forests of the Akan people of Ghana, lived the most beloved trickster of all, a spider. His name was ANANSI. Small, clever, and endlessly hungry, he outwits creatures 100 times his size. In the beginning, the old tale says, there were no stories on earth. All of them belonged to Nyame, the sky god, locked away above. Anansi climbed to the sky and asked to buy them. The price was impossible. Capture the python, the leopard, the hornets, and the unseen spirit. Mightier beasts had failed. But Anansi did not fight them. He tricked the python into measuring himself against a pole and bound him. One by one, with cunning alone, he snared the rest and carried them all to the sky god to pay the price. And so every story on earth became a spider's story, told in his name. Cunning defeats strength, the trickster's oldest promise. That promise crossed the ocean, keeping Anansi alive in the tales of the enslaved, and it echoes across a whole other hemisphere too. In the myths of the peoples of North America, the trickster runs on 4 legs and 2, wearing fur and feathers. Among many nations he is coyote, greedy, foolish, and brilliant by turns, teaching by his blunders as much as his victories, dying and returning again and again. And along the misty coasts of the Pacific Northwest, the trickster takes wing as raven, both creator and clown. In the oldest days, the tellers say, the whole world lay in darkness. An old chief hoarded all the light hidden in nested boxes. So Raven turned himself into a tiny needle of pine and let the chief's daughter swallow him in a sip of water. She gave birth to a strange, demanding child, who cried until his grandfather surrendered the boxes to quiet him. One by one, the child released the stars, the moon, and at last the sun, flinging it up through the smoke hole into the sky. Then, resuming his black wings, Raven flew, and the first daylight broke over the world. The trickster had stolen the sun to give it away. Sail out onto the wide Pacific, and one hero of theft is sung on 1,000 islands, Maui, demigod of Polynesia. Maui is the youngest, smallest, and cleverest, always underestimated, always winning by wits, and his deeds shaped the world itself. With a magic hook made from his grandmother's jawbone, he fished up islands from the deep, hauling whole lands into the sun. When the days ran too short, he wove ropes from his own hair, snared the racing sun, and beat it until it agreed to travel slowly. And like tricksters everywhere, he stole fire, coaxing its secret from the fire goddess in the underworld and carrying the flame home to mankind. Islands, daylight, fire, the gifts of a laughing thief. Now cross to the mainland of Asia, where the trickster storms the very gates of heaven. In China they tell of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, born from a stone egg on a mountaintop and hungry for immortality. He mastered 72 transformations, becoming beast, insect, or stone at will, and plucked hairs from his body to make armies of himself. He raided the underworld to strike his name from the Book of the Dead, and stormed heaven itself when the gods slighted his rank. He named himself Great Sage Equal to Heaven, and it took the Buddha to pin the rebel beneath a mountain for 500 years. In Japan, the storm answers back. Susanoo, wild brother of the sun goddess, was cast out of heaven for his tantrums and cruelty. But the exiled troublemaker became a hero. He found a family weeping. A serpent with 8 heads had devoured 7 daughters and came now for the last. Susanoo did not fight with force alone. He set out 8 vats of strong sake, and the 8-headed beast drank itself into sleep. Then he cut it apart, and in its tail found the sword Kusanagi, a treasure of the imperial line. Chaos turned to guardian. And on the cold plains of the Slavs, the pattern turns one final time into a rivalry that spins the seasons. Veles was the shape-shifting god of cattle, wealth, magic, and the shadowed underworld, coiling as a serpent through the roots of the world. Against him stood Perun, the thunder god of the bright sky and rigid order. Veles would climb the world tree and steal Perun's cattle, dragging them down below. Perun would hurl his lightning, and Veles would flee, hiding as a tree, a beast, a man, until the rains fell and the earth grew green. Their endless chase was the storm itself and the turning of the year. The trickster's mischief, once again keeping the world in motion. 12 faces, 12 traditions, and we have only lifted the edge of the veil. So return to the question we began with. Why? Why did every people, in every age, on every shore, invent a figure to break their own sacred rules? Because a world of pure order is a world that cannot change. Perfect law is perfect stillness, and stillness is a kind of death. The trickster is the crack in the wall that lets tomorrow in. He is chaos, yes, but chaos that renews. He steals fire so we may rise. He tells the story so we may remember. He crosses the line so we can see there was a line at all. He is the necessary fool, the one who makes the gods laugh and the kings uneasy, and reminds every power that it can be outwitted. So the next time you feel the urge to break a rule that no longer serves, to laugh at a throne, to slip through a locked door, know that you are keeping company with the oldest and slyest spirit humanity ever imagined. The door is still unlocked. He is still laughing.